Hi, I'm Amy Corr, Chief Brokerage Officer of @Properties Christie's International Real Estate, and you're listening to Corr Values, a podcast where we talk about real estate and real life. As someone who's worn many hats, agent, managing broker, coach, executive, and mom, I know the hustle is real. So I'm sitting down with industry leaders and entrepreneurs to uncover the stories, strategies, and values that fuel real success. From being the CEO of your own business to figuring out how to show up for your people, we're covering it all. My guest today is one of the most recognized voices in real estate. For almost 2 decades, Dr. Lawrence Yun has served as Chief Economist at the National Association of Realtors, where he leads their research group and analyzes the latest housing trends. In this episode, we talk about what's driving his optimism for 2026, what trends and policies he's watching closely, and how agents can translate the data into real conversations with clients. Don't miss Rapid Fire, where we get to know the person behind the stats and predictions. Let's dive in. So Lawrence, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast, Corr Values. We have tons of real estate agents that listen in, and I'm excited to be talking to you today because there's a lot going on in our market this year in the economy, and who better to talk to than you? So let's dive into it. Before we get started talking about real estate and the economy and what we should be thinking about, though, I want to learn a little bit more about you, your background. You are a very recognized voice when it comes to real estate economics. I know that you went to Purdue and you got your PhD, I think in mechanical engineering. Is that right?
So I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering.
Wow.
I did not like that topic, so I switched over to economics. But Amy, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah. Well, we're really excited. And I love that. So started out in engineering, but made a shift to economics and probably parlayed you into where you're at. But tell us a little bit more about how you actually got here as Chief Economist for NAR.
So in my graduate studies, we did a lot of forecasting model, trying out different things. So I've been always interested in how to modify some of the model. One thing about social science is that there are so many thousand variables that impact human behavior, yet one can only identify or measure maybe 5. So, one is not capturing so many other variables, so one tried to make best prediction of it. So NAR had a position for economic forecaster, and I said, okay, I'm going to try it out. So I started out as a junior economist in the back office, just crunching the numbers. And then in 2008, just as the foreclosure crisis were beginning to occur, we had a vacancy, and then they asked me if I want to take on the position. In a sense, it was a challenging moment at that time, but I feel so grateful for the opportunity. Realtors are amazing people, as you know, from all different backgrounds. They truly represent America, a wide spectrum of different career paths which they have taken, serving the American dream. So I feel very fortunate in my position.
I love it. I love that you love us so much. And I appreciate that you took on that responsibility in 2008 because I was an agent at that time. And let's just say it was a pretty tough market to be in. And you've seen a lot. I think as we're coming into 2026, and let's face it, it's still the beginning of the year, right? We've just kind of gotten past the Super Bowl, which is the official start of spring market, right? If you're a real estate agent, or that's the fun term. But, what are you seeing for 2026? I feel like we as agents always, of course, regardless of what's happening in the market, want to be optimistic because, we don't know what's about to happen, but that's part of being an entrepreneur. You got to go into it with an exciting and good attitude. But what do you think? Because I know you've described this year as the year of recovery. Can you break that down a little bit more for us and tell me what you think we're in store for?
Well, let me go to the bottom line. Bottom line is that I actually anticipate home sales to increase by 14% in the statistical modeling, which means the reality could be 10% or maybe even up to 19%. We have to wait and see. January figures were not good. Maybe, this is before the Super Bowl, like you mentioned. We need to wait until after the Super Bowl condition. But the factors that would drive home sales up mortgage rates are now beginning to trend a little lower, and I think it will continue to move lower. Federal Reserve, well, President Trump has appointed his person who will begin to work from May time period. And I think overall economic condition is suggesting there is a room for some rate cut. As you know, mortgage rate do not follow Federal Reserve decision one-to-one relationship, but over a longer period, it does influence. So the fact that we are here in February and mortgage rate is close to 6%. 1 year ago, it was 7%. Now, people may say that's not a big difference, but we find that that means about 5.5 million American households who could not qualify for mortgage at 7% suddenly qualify.
Wow.
But not everyone buys. So when we did past analysis, roughly 10% of newly qualifying households consider buying a home, and that's how we get that 14% increase in home sales.
Okay.
But what is also needed aside from lower mortgage rate is additional supply. We know about the lock-in effect, so as the buyers come into the market, we need to assure there is sufficient supply in the marketplace.
Yeah, all really great information and really smart ways to look at it. I know, like, if I look hyper locally here, there's still a lot of markets where to think 14%, even 19%, as you had maybe mentioned, feels like a lot. Are there certain places across the United States where you're seeing that there's going to be more of an opening opportunity for inventory to come? Because I feel like here in the Midwest, it's still pretty tight. And I don't know if you're thinking it's going to change here, or when you're looking at that average across the U.S., are there certain pockets where we're starting to see a buildup of more inventory?
Last year, it was third straight year of difficult home sales, subpar performance. 75% of what I consider normal. 2019 was pre-COVID time. So if we compare with pre-COVID as a normal period, past 3 years were 75% of normal, which means that it was challenging. Now, of course, there are realtors who always tap on my shoulder and say, you know what, I had my best year ever. Because this is an entrepreneurial business. We know that even in difficult market, there are some people really thrive in any given circumstance, but we still want the broad macroeconomic numbers to be a little better. So we had 3 years of difficulty, but within the region, Midwest outperformed rest of the country last year. So rest of the country saw either no increase or slight decrease, but Midwest saw increase in unit sales and slight increase in prices. And part of that reason, I think, is due to the fact that Midwest is quite affordable. Now, for longtime residents of Chicago may say, oh, home prices have risen so much, but anyone who is transferring from, say, San Francisco to Chicago region, or from Boston or Washington to Chicago region, this isn't affordable. So I think that affordable region, whether it's Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago generally, I know Chicago has wide distribution of expensive homes, mid-price and so forth. But overall, that is providing more option for the buyers, and that's why it's holding up much better. But the inventory situation is a little tighter because I guess the buyers are a little in the market, so which is critical that we need to get more inventory. And I'm from Washington, and in Washington, it's a nasty debate between two political parties. I mean, they really do not like each other. But this week, they passed a legislation by a vote of 390 yes, 10 no. How do you get this bipartisan? What was the bill? It was a bill to get more housing to the market.
I love it.
Which NAR has been pushing for. So to get a huge bipartisan effort to bring more supply to the market. So hopefully it trickles into the Chicagoland region.
Yeah, and anything specific on that? Do you know what some of the things that they're going to do to get more housing in? I mean, are they going to make it easier for people who want to build new construction? Are they going to be creating more ways for entry-level buyers, maybe who are challenged from the pricing component? Are there any things that you know are going to be coming out of that bill that are going to fuel it specifically?
Trying to reduce some of the red tape, because from builders' perspective, if there's more certainty or shorten the time frame from the start of the building to completion, it makes it much easier. And also considering that maybe it requires some tax credit incentive on some of the, say, uninhabitable units, or say empty office building. Can we turn it into condominium buildings? So all this measure and also provide some framework for the locals to adopt possibly. Now, in some neighborhood, great characteristic, so they want to maintain their characteristic. But in other neighborhood, why do we have to build 3 houses in a 1-acre lot? Can we build 6 homes? And by doing that, automatically we are building smaller size unit, more affordable unit, providing the first-time buyer a little better chance. So all this discussion, so that bill was passed. Of course, Senate needs to consider that. It's part of it. But one of the big measure that we are really pushing through, which is not yet passed, is the capital gains exemption. We know that many elderly homeowners, they're sitting on huge capital gains, but they don't want to sell their home because if they sell, they will be hit with a capital gains tax.
Right.
And we think this is unfair. The $250,000 exemption for single, $500,000 for married couple, this has not been changed for 30 years, even as price of everything has risen. So we are just saying, out of fairness, can we index to inflation retroactively? And if that's the case, the exemption level would double, which means that more homeowners in the Chicagoland area was, oh, now I can sell my home and move into a better property, whether trading up or trading down, whatever reason that may be, that facilitates more supply into the market.
I love it. Thank you for breaking some of those down. So for the homeowners exemption, it would be moved from $250 to $500 for a single, and then from $500 to $1 million for a couple?
Yeah, that's what we are pushing for. And I know that there are some members of Congress who think that there should not even be any capital gains tax for homeowners, period. But there's a large discussion beginning to take place. I know that a few years ago, NAR, when we were talking with members of Congress, we wanted to form real estate caucus, that is to say members who are interested in real estate. And there were a couple who are actual realtors in their prior profession. But today, the number has grown to about 120 members of Congress who are part of the real estate caucus, and then others who are not part of it, they still understand why it will be beneficial for the economy, for home buying process on these changes in capital gains exemption.
Well, I just think real estate and the home market has always been a very big active part of our economy. And I think a lot of times it's helped us get out of recessionary periods, aside from that one period of time in 07, 08, 09, when we kind of saw that not be the case. But, so I think I appreciate the fact that so much attention is being drawn to this piece about home affordability. And it kind of leads me into our next conversation, which is taking a look at our economy, and specifically kind of the shape of our economy, which I believe right now we are talking about it being a K-shaped economy. And I would love for you to maybe explain what a K-shaped economy is, what it looks like, and really how can real estate agents be able to explain this concept to their buyers and sellers to help them? And then also, are there things that we might need to do to shift away from this type of economy? Because I think after you explain it, it is here now, but I don't know if it's the healthiest thing for us to have in the long term.
So the K-shape just means that people who have it, they're in a comfortable position, but people who don't have it, situation appears to be constantly deteriorating. So that's how you get K-shape, one group going up, another group going down. And I would say the divide between haves and have-nots are really about homeowners and renters. Homeowners have seen price increases of 50%, 60% from pre-COVID to recent data points. So that's a substantial housing wealth build up. So people owning things, they feel financially comfortable. But if you look at the data on credit card delinquency rate, it has risen to the recessionary levels. People are unable to pay auto loan debt. And student debt also beginning to spike upward, which clearly indicate there's some economic distress within certain segment of the population. And I think if one was to dive in a little further, it's really between homeowners and renters. Now, we know the long-term history that financial well-being, financial wealth accumulation happens to homeowners by sizably over time. So way to get out of the K-shape, we need to provide more opportunity for the renters to become homeowners, more supply, that would be critical. So again, anything to boost supply would be a good thing because we don't want to have a permanent K-shape where younger people feel completely left out,
Sure.
and that's not a healthy development.
Yeah, I mean, I have nieces and nephews who, I've talked to them, they live out in California, and they said, I don't think we're ever going to be able to buy something, and one of the things I even said to them is, just because you can't buy here, why don't you think about buying somewhere else? Even though you aren't going to enjoy the opportunity to live in it, you can still build the equity as a homeowner and rent it out to somebody else, like in a more affordable area where, again, they're in the San Francisco Bay Area, very expensive there. They, have nice livings, but, I think it's also for some of these entry-level people being a little bit creative about their first step in home ownership. Don't you agree?
Yes, I think, ownership, even if it's not for owner occupancy, I think at least it brings some long-term wealth potential. Short-term, it could fluctuate, but long-term, it always turns out well. And in fact, 40% of realtors, when we took a survey, have investment properties. So I'm always wondering, with 3 years of difficult home sales environment, but the number of realtors is still, I would say, on the high end. And even though the commission income was not coming through on average, some people do well, but on average it was not coming through. I think the investment income or the investment property price appreciation provided some comfort level for the realtors.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's funny because we suggest to a lot of agents that you are going out and helping people build wealth by buying properties or homes. It's something that you should be considering being in the business to think about, how can I create a revenue stream or an opportunity to build growth and diversify myself. So it's interesting that you talk about that. So I love the idea that, the government is obviously stepping in and trying to come up with some smart ways to help reduce kind of, I think, the aggressiveness of this K-shaped economy. Are there any other things that you're seeing that might be happening? Any companies doing anything to try and see how they can, generate or do something different to ease out the economic, I think, disparity between the haves and the have-nots, as you said?
For private companies, they're going to try all the measures trying to attract top talents. Sometimes they offer maybe better vacation packages or not. Why not offer that down payment assistance to attract people? And I know in the Chicago region, there's a large degree of down payment assistance for people who meet certain criteria. And some realtors are very attuned to those issues and able to get that first step. But we really need that additional supply because you can provide a lot of demand stimulus. But if the supply does not increase, it just means more buyer competing over a same property, and it just boosts the prices. It's good for homeowners, but it frustrates the renters who want to become homeowners.
Yeah, I mean, we've really got to figure out how to unlock that inventory flow. This is all such great stuff. So I want to ask about how, we've had a lot going on in our industry for the last few years. I don't know if you noticed. But looking ahead, what are NAR's biggest priorities when it comes to helping our agents continue to thrive?
We collected so much survey information because with our new CEO, Nikhil Wright, she said, well,
she's great.
First thing we should do is listen to our members. What are their needs? So we collected, over 300,000 responses in various forms. And then we prioritized by talking with people who are involved with NAR. These are realtor members serving on committees. And they prioritize about what is important, strategic planning, to be more transparent, bring out the products that could be of value to members. We conduct, from my area, research, home buyer seller report, which constantly is getting utilized by members across the country. And our advocacy team, amazing how they are able to constantly communicate important messages to the elected officials. But this is part of the democratic process where people serving on Congress, they have constituents. Well, realtors are part of their constituents, and we remind them. And so things like legislation passing, 390 yes, 10 no. I mean, those are super impact in the whole process.
I don't know if if agents always sort of realize just the importance, though, of NAR's voice and the advocacy, especially in Washington, D.C. So we certainly appreciate that. I love also hearing that, with this survey, you had a number of initiatives or things that you want to focus on. Anything specific that you can share that's going to be, an initiative coming out from kind of the feedback that you've received from our group?
Well, I can talk about my area, which is research. So what we have heard was that people like our materials. They sit and listen and they enjoy it. But suddenly they go home and they forget exactly what it was about, even though they know there was a lot of good content. So one of the things is we're trying to provide a bite-sized content, one-pager, half-pager, where realtor can actually distribute to their clients, or a broker can use it in their sales meeting to say, here's the latest trend that you should be monitoring. So providing more up-to-date research and provide that bite-sized content. And also we call something called a dashboard. It's only for member exclusive.
Okay.
And in it, we are processing all the census information related to home ownership, home buyer characteristic. Census spend billions of dollars collecting that data, and virtually no one uses those data. Well, I have my staff directed to look into it. In fact, one of the first tasks was that let's do a hypothetical scenario analysis. Mortgage rate goes from 7% to 6%. How many people who could not qualify at 7% begin to qualify at 6%? And then run some numbers on it, which is the reason how I got that 14%
I love that.
Increase.
Yeah.
So for each market, like Chicagoland, other places, maybe the figure is a little different. Maybe it's 10% in one market, maybe 16% in another market. So all that is in the part of the dashboard.
I love it. And so the dashboard is for all of us who are members of NAR. We can log in and
Yes.
it's pretty easy to find.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm loving, real estate agents well, because we do just want the bite-sized nugget that we can either regurgitate or have in our listing presentation. So I think that's great. Let me ask you this question as it relates to the data. You pull a lot of information. Are there data sources beyond what you're offering through NAR that you rely on when you're shaping your forecasts? In other words, are there recommendations that you would make to agents to say, hey, if you want to know a little bit more about, what's going on in the economy, or understanding, some of the specifics of the K-shaped economy, or maybe something specific to your area, are there any sources that you recommend that they look at online?
So at least for me, I'm looking at the data that when it's coming out fresh. For example, this morning, there was a fresh economic data on the inflation picture, which shows that we have the most commonest inflation in about 5 years. Consumer price index rising by 2.4%. It happened up to 9% a few years ago, then steadily beginning to decelerate. Well, 2.4% is not contain inflation, but it's certainly better than what it had been. But that's critical, because that means that Federal Reserve is much more inclined to cut interest rate later this year as the inflation calms down. So trying to analyze what could be the impact of that, or just remind people in Washington, including the Federal Reserve, to say, look, inflation is trending in the right way. Be a little more open about possibly cutting interest rate condition. Say the labor market report, how many jobs are being added in the Chicagoland, certainly for the long term is very important. In areas, I remember Youngstown, Ohio, where there was a major factory closed down. Well, home values just collapsed when people lost job. So we need to look at the dynamics of the labor market. And then there's some private sector data, consumer confidence information. So anytime there's a new set of data, one wants to look at it. And of course, I incorporate that with the many data that we pull from the MLS about price discounts. The home stays on the market for a long period. It could even lead to about 14%, 15% price discount if home is staying on the market for 3 months or longer, which means that if you misprice the home from the beginning, just because the homeowner says, oh, I want to sell it at the highest possible price, and without doing some market analysis to say, oh, I want that listing, I'm going to promise that. Well, if one does not sell it at list price and do eventual large price discount over time, well, then, it doesn't turn out well. So combination of many data to help me assess.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and get your list though of like where you go, what websites, what you subscribe to, because I think that that's super helpful. I think a lot of times for agents, it's you only have so much time in a given day, but it's like if I could start exercising some discipline in the morning and looking at 3 sites that have some great data, I'm going to get that list from you, and we're going to include it here for everybody.
All right, great.
That would be valuable. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Chicago. Because I've been reading a lot of things, maybe not the best news source, but on Instagram, I've been seeing a lot of things about the Chicago and Illinois being a state to keep an eye on in the future for a number of reasons. But I want to get, your take on it, because Case Schiller just said that price growth is the highest here in Chicago right now. And we joked because back in 2007, we were probably the worst on the Case Schiller list. So we've come a long way. But what do you see for Chicago? You even referenced the Midwest areas, but what are we going to be seeing over, like, let's say the next 5 to 10 years in your mind? Are we going to continue to see strong growth? Are we going to see companies wanting to move to the Midwest area? What is your take on it?
Back in 1970, so this is way going, I was a small child at that time. Back in 1970, the median home price in the Midwest was around $20,000.
Wow.
The median price in the West region, including California, was around $20,000. Can you believe the home prices were almost equal
same?
across the country?
Wow.
East Coast, southern states, all. But over time, it diverged. And one of the reasons was, maybe it's high-paying technology jobs in California, or people are moving to southern state. So it began to diverge a bit. But last year, we saw Midwest strengthening. And I think the reason is people are beginning to say, I want to raise a family. I want to be a homeowner rather than simply be a renter in some expensive areas. And ever since, we had the COVID, I hope we don't have, another occurrence of that, but it brought this possibility of working from home. So I know some companies are saying, okay, come back to office, but it's never 5 days. They're providing some hybrid schedule. So as long as we have this more remote work, hybrid work model, I think people will be attractive towards more affordable regions of the country, and the Midwest would be a huge beneficiary of that. And some companies, knowing that there's an affordability in the Midwest, they may want to relocate here to attract that talent pool, which is already in the Chicago area.
Well, I'm even thinking some of the climate stuff. Well, yes, it's cold here. We aren't dealing with some of the big things that on the coasts we've been seeing, the hurricanes, the fires. We're near the largest body of fresh water. I mean, do you think any of those things, even from more of that longer term view, is also going to contribute to the stability of this middle of America?
Certainly, there's more climate weather patterns, and the property insurance bill has been rising across the board, even here in Chicago area, but much more sharply in other areas. So I think that when one looks at housing affordability, we actually have a housing affordability index measure, which comprises of people's income, home prices, and mortgage rate. But now people are saying we need to include insurance into that equation because in the past it was negligent, but now it's becoming important. So every place insurance cost has risen, but much more modestly in the Midwest, again, implying better affordability. As to other part, it's really hard to forecast, but the fresh water, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, the Great Lakes, it could be a huge boom in the future about the access to the fresh water.
Yeah, I also think it's because the Chicago Bears are going to be on a tear, Lawrence. I'm saying it here first, but I'm thinking we're going to be Super Bowl bound in the next 5 years. Would you agree?
The Bears, certainly when I was growing up, one of my favorite player, maybe not the team, but the favorite player was Walter Payton. So anyone who remembers Walter Payton, just the sweetness of it. So anytime Bears play, I'm pulling for it.
All right. Well, we're hoping. We've got a great coach, we've got a great quarterback, we've got a great team. So we're very bullish on the future of our Bears. So I appreciate it. This has been such great information, such great takeaways for our agents, which I really appreciate. And now we are upon the time that's the funnest in the podcast. So are you ready for this, Lawrence? This is my rapid fire. All right, it's called the lightning round with Lawrence, and you ready for it?
Yep.
Okay, great. So these are just some fun questions to get to know a little bit more about you. What's your favorite way to recharge after a long workday or a long week?
I just like to walk. If it's in nature, possible hiking opportunity, I would certainly enjoy that. But in the city, I'm from the Washington area, maybe just, doing light bicycling around. My wife said I can never ride a bike where there's a car, so I have to go into a dedicated bike trail. So I find that, doing that or just reading, now maybe more listening to audiobooks now than before.
Yeah, great. I love it. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Let's see. I don't try to rewatch the movie, but I remember watching the Schindler's List, and it had a big impact. And then, the Godfather series, terrific. But I would also include Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Robert Redford recently passed away, but I tried to remember. That was exciting. I think some of the songs in that music also was enlightening as well.
Yeah, I love those. Those are all good ones. I like it. Other than real estate and the economy, what's one topic that you could give a TED Talk on without any prep?
Well, maybe not a TED Talk, but I like to be an amateur historian. I've been reading the things, whether it's Napoleon's, just sort of going into trying to spread what he perceived to be anti-monarchy. Let's spread republicanism all across Europe. Then, of course, he collapsed. So all this thing, I found it kind of amusing. So as an amateur historian, can I make a story out of it rather than as a professional historian? I enjoy it.
You could make a musical out of it, just like what is it? Hamilton.
Oh, yeah,
just like Hamilton. Is there any particular period of history that you really like, or?
I think it's maybe from the Christopher Columbus time all the way to today. I think that's much more dynamic. It includes the Italian Renaissance, where all this growth in art and amazing architecture, where they did not have construction cranes, but somehow they were able to build just a magnificent art.
They also didn't have as many zoning issues. I love it. I love it. So if you could swap jobs with anyone in the world for a day, who would it be and why?
For one day. I have a 27-year-old son. I think he's 27, maybe 26. I'm sorry if I cannot do math correctly on that regard. And he recently moved here to Chicago I think in January. So he's been frozen for the past couple of months. But every time I talk to him, he's just loving the city. He's this amazing city. He's enjoying it. And the reason for the switch is I want to be young again.
Yes, right? 27 in a city, plenty to do.
Yeah, just for one day.
Yes, I love it. All right, final question. What's something most people don't know about you?
I guess if something that people do not know about me. I mean, you mentioned about my background as an engineering major. When I mention that, people are often surprised that. But there's a little commonality with economics in terms of number crunching, math focus part. But the very first day my parents and the whole family moved to America, I didn't speak a word of English. I was 8 years old, and then went to the school. But kids being kids, they always play around. But I think I learned my English watching the Sesame Street.
Yes, the good old days of Sesame Street. I love it. Well, Lawrence, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I loved our conversation, and I think there's so many great nuggets that whoever out there is listening right now is going to take away from this conversation. So thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Corr Values. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Corr Values. If you loved the episode, be sure to hit the follow button so you don't miss the next one. You can also connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn for more insights on all things real estate and real life. And always, as a friendly reminder, you got this.